It's been one of those stories that's been drip-fed to the news media. WikiLeaks' continuous release of some juicy details about Hillary Clinton's campaign for the White House. We now know that the emails in question were hacked from the account of Clinton's campaign chief, John Podesta. As is often the case with leaks, not all of the material qualifies as revelatory. Much of it confirms what most already suspected. Clinton's position on banking regulations differs, for instance, depending on whether she's meeting with bankers or with voters. And her relationship with the U.S. mainstream media is a bit too close, too cozy for comfort. This is a story that reaches in different directions overseas, with the allegations as yet unconfirmed that Russian operatives and/or the Kremlin were behind the hacking, as well as the decision taken this past week by the Ecuadorian government to plug the leaks. The government in Quito is now denying its house guest, Julian Assange, access to the internet at its London embassy. Ecuador says it took the decision because it has a policy of not intervening in the electoral affairs of other countries. Assange has a policy too. He does that for a living. Our starting point this week is not a city or a country, it's an address, john.podesta@gmail.com. Like most government towns, Washington has seen its share of political hacks. This one was different. Among the smoking guns produced by WikiLeaks, this email from an editor at the Boston Globe to the Clinton campaign, coordinating the timing of an op-ed piece the candidate's team would write for the paper. It would be good to get it in on Tuesday when she's in New Hampshire. That would give her a big presence on Tuesday with the piece, and on Wednesday with the news story. Please let me know. There are plenty of emails written by Clinton staffers discussing which reporters were friendly and potentially useful. That is not unusual. However, the degree of cooperation the campaign got was, including from the outlet that calls itself America's newspaper of record.
So they selected a New York Times reporter by the name of Mark Leibovich, saying that he seemed sympathetic. Well, a week after they selected him for the interview, he emails the Clinton campaign, and he gives them a list of the questions he asked and a few of the answers that Hillary Clinton gave that he thought that the Clinton campaign would object to. And he gave them veto power, his words, to sort of excise whichever questions they didn't like. And sure enough, the Clinton campaign pointed to two of the questions, and they said, you know, we don't want this in your piece in the New York Times. And it never appeared, it never saw the light of day.
It is normal for campaigns to reach out and see if a reporter's interested in a story. There are some emails in there that are problematic. So there was one where a Politico writer sent an email to Podesta with text of the article, basically asking for approval on that text. That is not okay. That is giving a source control over how you represent them, which you cannot do. There are some bad reporters, and those reporters do not speak for the profession as a whole.
All presidential campaigns and politicians try to work with the media to ensure favorable media coverage. The Podesta emails show that the Clinton campaign has perhaps done this to an unprecedented degree. Previous emails released from Secretary Clinton have also shown that journalists worked with the Clinton campaign, asked for feedback on articles. You know, they didn't just ask for quotes, they asked for things that they should emphasize. And I think that's very troubling.
The Clinton camp is very closed off to the rest of the world. They are very loyal to each other, utilizing radio silence when needed. So, yeah, in order to get some access to the Clinton campaign, you had to agree somehow to play by their rules. And I think even if this is the way things are done, it does show a quite profound distrust in the media.
The first set of leaks from Julian Assange and company came 3 months ago and revealed political malpractice at the heart of the Democratic National Committee, the ruling party's governing body. The DNC chairperson, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, was supposed to be neutral. The leaked emails exposed her as a pro-Clinton, anti-Bernie Sanders operative. She was forced to resign and was instantly, unashamedly, hired by Clinton's own campaign. First, it was anonymous intelligence sources. Now the Obama administration is openly accusing Russia of interference and online espionage.
Consistent with the methods and motivations of Russian-directed efforts.
And that has become the conventional political wisdom within the Washington Beltway, which includes the media.
There is growing evidence that Russia is using WikiLeaks as a delivery vehicle for hacked emails and other information.
There are very good reasons to believe that Russia is behind the hack of the DNC, because code that was used in the hack of the DNC was also used in code that hacked targets in Germany, official targets in Germany that have been linked back to Russian hacker groups. We don't have as good forensic evidence when it comes to the Podesta hack, but it seems hard to believe that there would be lots of targeted attacks that would end up going to WikiLeaks that weren't Russia. Does that mean Russia's directing WikiLeaks? No, not necessarily. It just means that there's a confluence of interests.
The Obama administration has vested interest in seeing their successor elected. And certainly, this would not be the first time that they've deceived the American public in order to further a national security goal. So journalists should report on the fact that the Obama administration has come out and said that they are fairly confident that Russia is behind some of these hacks. But they also have to make clear that that is not a statement of fact, that is a statement of what the United States government is saying. They should report it as this is what the United States government is saying.
One of the largest media canards being thrown out there is the notion that WikiLeaks is pro-Trump. And I would recommend people who believe this to go watch an interview Julian Assange did with Democracy Now!, in which he said, choosing between Trump and Clinton.
Do I prefer cholera or gonorrhea? Personally, I would prefer neither.
And when I interviewed Assange, he told me that the reason he and WikiLeaks have been so intensely critical of Hillary Clinton is because she is one of the most hawkish presidential candidates in recent U.S. history. She's essentially supported every U.S. war in the past 20 years. And glowingly at that. And this notion that WikiLeaks is pro-Russia, I think, is also fascinating because WikiLeaks has criticized Russia. In its book, The WikiLeaks Files, there's an entire chapter on Russia which is very critical of the Russian government and Putin.
I've heard from so many of you.
In U.S. political parlance, the term October surprise refers to any big news story that can affect the result of November's vote. And that's how some in the media have described Julian Assange's month-long series of leaks. The real October surprise came this past week, when Assange had his internet connection cut. The Ecuadorian government announced that it did the cord cutting, saying that while Quito reaffirms the asylum granted to Julian Assange and reiterates its intention to safeguard his life until he reaches a safe place, it was temporarily restricting his internet access because Ecuador does not interfere in external electoral processes, nor does it favor any particular candidate.
I've definitely felt that there was a degree of hypocrisy in the Ecuadorian government's statement. This notion that they don't want to interfere in other governments, and obviously, all WikiLeaks does is sort of interfere with Western governments in particular. I would not be surprised if perhaps there was a tit for tat where the United States pointed out, well, if you have this foreign actor essentially on Ecuadorian soil in your embassy in London, who is actively putting out documents that are interfering with our election, why wouldn't we then interfere with your election? And it may be that they saw the sense in that.
Ecuador has denied it caved under pressure from Washington, saying it acted on its own. To call this a complicated story is to sell its complexities short. But setting aside how the emails were made public, the alleged agendas of some of the players involved, and the possible agendas of others alleged to be involved, the one institution clearly and undeniably sullied by the publication of all those cozy emails is the American news media.
It's important to see Americans' distrust in the media as a reflection overall of Americans' distrust in the political system.
Jail Hillary! Jail Hillary!
We're facing an election right now in which we have the two least popular presidential candidates in U.S. history. So it's not just that Americans distrust the media, it's that they distrust the political system as a whole.
It's cozy, but out of necessity. It's impossible to get access to within the Clinton campaign. It's its own little universe of confidants and people who have proven to be trustworthy and loyal. So if you want to get in the campaign, you have to play by their rules. And I guess some people had no compunctions over playing by the rules.
I would say I probably speak for every journalist in Washington when I say I'm glad that it's not my emails that were hacked, because I suspect that we all have something that kind of looks bad in the light of day.